all of today's speakers. I'd also like to recognize another amazing group of people who've helped make this event possible, the South Bay Tea Party. We've come a long way since we first came together back in March. From April 15th to this event this evening, this team has proven that this movement, and more importantly, the principles upon which it's based, are here to stay.
Woo!
Let's give these folks a round of applause. Let me frame this evening's discussion with a simple question. Why is big government bad? Growing up in a fishing family, we lived with the constant threat of further environmental restrictions jeopardizing our livelihood. When I was 15, this became all too real for me. I had to cash in my college savings to help pay the rent and put food on the table. Why? My father's swordfish season had been closed indefinitely because an environmental group had sued the federal government under the Endangered Species Act over the unintended catch of 3 leatherback turtles by U.S. fishermen. All this trouble over 3 fishermen when thousands of these turtles were being sold to the Chinese as a delicacy. My father and hundreds of other fishermen were deprived of their livelihood over a frivolous claim under a poorly written law which did nothing to address the real problem. When this happened, my father received no help from the government, no subsidy, no buyout, not even a bailout. If he'd been a farmer, the government, quixotically, would even have actually paid him to not grow food. But for him and hundreds of others like him, they were forced to simply suck it up with no recourse. This brought me to an epiphany. Government doesn't allocate resources equitably. It allocates resources politically. With big government, preference and favors go to those with the best lobbyists or the most politically opportune constituency. The free market, on the other hand, allocates resources by pricing, and while it may not do so perfectly, you at least get what you pay for most of the time. In the political market, on the other hand, it's often all or nothing. So let's extend this point to healthcare reform. The incumbent party has proposed a public option which will level the playing field by competing with private plans to maximize coverage. The only problem with this is that doesn't the government also make the rules by which they do business? And thereby they have the ability to hamstring private insurers to make the public option more competitive. This begs the question, how is it a level playing field when one of the players is also the referee? To keep the public plan afloat, they'll have to tax and regulate to either reduce the quality of care or reduce costs. It's just that simple. Similar plans in Massachusetts and Tennessee are already on the road to failure, with costs spiraling out of control. This healthcare bill is a big government racket, paid for with even more debt. Our most urgent priority must be stopping this bill. Hundreds within our group have quite heroically pleaded, demonstrated, lobbied, and outright begged Jane Harman to vote against H.R. 3200, the healthcare reform bill, and she still voted for it in committee.
Boo.
We invited her here tonight to speak and clarify her position on this issue. She's out of the district the entire August recess. The time may be coming to reevaluate her job as our representative. Our second priority is taking our state and country back from big government politicians. In order to do this, however, I must ask that each and every one of you reaches out of your comfort zone and does what Gary and I and so many others have done and become an advocate. That means writing letters, walking precincts, making phone calls, participating in protests, fundraising, and becoming vocal public critics of the current big government push. And perhaps more importantly, advocates of the free market alternative. We are the first and the last line of defense for our own liberty. And we can no longer afford to stand idly by and do nothing while this takes shape. As Barry Goldwater said, extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. Moderation and the pursuit of justice, no virtue.
Wow.
I hope you enjoy this evening's programming. Thanks for listening, and God bless America.